Nice weather, nice city, nice audience, I think. All who want to know more about like the Compose Multiplatform here. And I invite you in like to my journey today. And as my name is Yauheni, and let's go to start. First of all, I want to tell some words about myself. It may be some more boring part of this presentation. As I think, as all developers here, I have almost the same experience. I started around like 10 years ago. I work in some several consulting company. Originally, I'm from like Belarus, but now I'm living in Sweden around like 3 years. And during the time, I work in a different consulting company. We have like different projects from small like to startups when I was just one developer, or to big like to products what use like to millions of users with huge code base and with a lot of developers in one Android developers. Yeah, it was a nice experience. And 3 years ago, I like to move in Sweden and start work in one of the consulting company in Sweden, and we developed some several applications. And it was very like dramatically changes like to developer culture from like to Belarus to Sweden. If you want details, you just like to ask me like privately. And the last place where I'm working now, as like to previous speaker Jackson, I'm working in Yauheni. It's like a large and leading consulting company in Sweden. They has a lot of like to customers he works like Scania, Volvo, but I think one of the main products we work it's like to McDonald's applications. These applications like to used in around like 50 countries in the globe, even in Czech here. If you have some like problems with McDonald's application, you know to whom like to complain. I will fix it. Okay, and also I like to gathering. I like to connection in the LinkedIn. It's like to my LinkedIn profile. We'll be happy if you connect and like to write some questions if you have after talk, or even just like to follow and discuss on some topics. I like to share my thoughts here. And one additional, I have like some very personal developer blog, Slizh dev. I share like to my personal thoughts about development, AI, and all and other stuff. You will be welcome to read, and some interesting thoughts I publish here too. Okay, let's go to start our main talk. First, some small, I did not exercises. Can you like to bring your left hand if you're Android developer? Okay, cool. It's a lot of Android developer. And right hand if you're iOS developer. Don't shy. Okay, cool. And two hand if you both and cross-platform developer and iOS and Android. Ooh. And our talk about like to cross-platform and how make our life easy, even if you're Android or even if you're only iOS developer. I think this talk will be useful for you, because here I share like to our experience how we move from native platform to something cross platform for application. And first, about like some short story about this project. I think this story is very common for any consulting company. We have like one customer. It's like to operate North Sweden train. It's like to they have web applications. They schedule the trains when they arrive, delay, and before they have like to old-fashioned like to services when the train is delayed. And if you subscribe on this train, they just send SMS for you with like a new time of the train. Because a lot of users, a lot of like to delays. In result of this, you should be sent a lot of like to SMS, and this is like to real cost. And the company decided to just reduce the cost and move to something more cheaper, like to push notification. It's like more cheaper than SMS now. And they decided, okay, we use push notification for inform the user if you train delay, and for this we need like two mobile applications. They goes to us and ask, please create like mobile application with services of notify user if you train delay. It's simple idea, simple application, and customer don't care about like what stack we use. In other words, we should be decided what we use for this platform. And this is like to key question and first question, what stack we will use for this solution? And first answering this, you possibly use like to native application for both for Android and iOS. It's cool, nice, but you see there's some main problem here because it's small customer, like a small consulting company. They don't have a lot of resources to have two native application, because to build two native application, you need to at least two developers. And in this case, we start thinking about something cross-platform solutions. And again, we have the list of the cross-platform like to React Native, Flutter, and KMM, or KMP, if you call, Kotlin Multiplatform. We have expertise for each of these platforms, but we decided, okay, maybe we use KMP because we have like more experience, more knowledge of this, and we think it's more flexible for our solution. In result of this, we use KMP as like the main cross-platform solution. What is like the main benefit of KMP? It's because it's very flexible and depend on your target and your goals. You possible just use only some small part of shared logic between platform, and or even you possible use like just like the whole business logic in as a shared platform and shared between iOS and Android, or even you can move like to more further and build like to the whole UI for both platform. And in other words, it's dependent on your target. You possibly select a solution what you want. And 2 years ago, for us, we decided on the second solution, use and shared business logic, but native, but you build UI by native. For Android, we use the Compose, and for iOS, we use the SwiftUI. Why we not use the third? Because in this time, Compose Multiplatform was in alpha, and we decided, okay, maybe it's not ready for production yet. Okay, maybe we wait and just use the middle, like to some best and solid solution. It's what we chose as a stack for the start. Now I show just like a simple project timeline for this project. I think you all should be very familiar because it's any consulting company work almost the same. First, we have like to start the project. We arrange some developers. We have the team around like 5 people, 1 iOS developer, 2 Android developer, project manager, and designer, and a small team, 5 person. Application not so complicated, and we will all done main functionality after the half year. And after this, and very often happens situation when project move in support like to period. And this time, we just support application, fix the bugs, add maybe new some features, but also in this time very often only 1 developer available for the project, or even like to maybe half of the developer available for this project. In other words, we're not possible keep like to 2 developer iOS and Android in the same time. And this was like one of the problem, because when sometimes customer goes with some issues, we need to fix this UI stuff. We need 1 developer should go to both platform and fix iOS and Android. And sometimes it's very surprised. You should write the code to fix this problem twice. This code almost identical, and this is like to push us to move forward to migrate in Compose Multiplatform. And the turning point was like to May 2025, because in this time in Kotlin Conf, they announced Compose Multiplatform goes to stable and production ready, and it was signal for us we're ready to move further and build UI, shared UI for both platform, for Android and iOS. And October 25, we just like to start process of migration from native UI to shared UI, what should look the same for both platform and use only the single code base. Yeah, it's simple like timeline for our project. What is the main problem we should be solved for this approach? First, we have both native UI, and key difference it's iOS and Android, and key difference We use the same single Figma file, but as you see, we have like a different like UI. And we have the question why. Okay, it's not like to pixel perfect. In other words, not all elements like to pixel perfect with Figma. And the UI is different because two different developers make the same screen. Another writes the code twice for Android and for iOS, and almost all logic is the same. But as a result, we have different UI, and different UI, it's not only one problem. And behind the UI, we have some kind of logic how we display, and this is possible causes some problems. It's first like to reason why we move in this direction, because we want to unify differences in both platform. And this example, it shows another screen when we use Compose Multiplatform, and now we use the Compose Multiplatform for both for Android and iOS. And now you can see now the screen is look almost the same. And because we use only one code base how we display the screen and use for Android and for iOS. In this case, originally we use the Compose from Android, just move in shared model and display this on iOS side. In result of this, you don't have a lot of differences, almost all elements the same, they behave the same, only slightly difference by size, because it's emulator and simulators, they have some kind of different resolution. As a result of this, we have some different sizes, but all in other components is the same. Only maybe tab bar is different because it's still native components. We not like to migrate these elements yet. Yeah, it's one of the like goal what we want to reach. Just have the same UI, one code base, and less the problems. And what we next? And next, I want to share one additional example of what push us to solve this problem and migrate. And this you can see we have additional feature requests from customer when we support period start. They want to have some kind of horizontal view pager display some notification about disruption on the line. And because I was only one single developer in this time, I start iOS developer in this time and start implement in both platform. For Android, it was pretty simple, but I think main problem here was these elements, it should be adjustable, and based on the size of the content, they should be a bit small or more bigger. I found the solution how to solve on Android is okay, because I'm more experienced than Android than iOS developer, and spent several days do the same for stuff for iOS. I didn't find a solution. And result of this, we have the size of the items the same as the biggest elements in this carousel. It's maybe, I'm not sure the best solution. Maybe now the more better. It will be nice if you share after talk. But now you can see we have, I spent 2 days here, 2 days on this, and totally spent 1 week just display one element, build one element for both platform. But after migration, okay, I just use the more simple and more best components from Android, move to shared models and display both on the Android and iOS side. And now it's how this element. Now before they look different not only by visual but in behavior, how this element behave. But after migration, these two elements look the same and use this structure. And this show it's almost the same and behave in the same and both in an Android platform. And in the result of this, I built 3 components, but because I migrate. But if you start from the scratch, if you use the Compose Multiplatform at the start, you just to have all benefits built once and runs multiple times on any platform what you want, even if you want to use the web or desktop, not only constrained by mobile platforms. Okay, it's our goals, our motivation to move, because we don't want to do this stuff every time when the new components request it. And now we need to tell some word about possible approaches, how we can reach this migration. If you participate to one talk before, when David talked about incremental migration and refactoring code, they shared very nice idea. Every migration and refactoring should be step by step. And in this case, on the start, we have 2 possible approaches, to migrate all at once. In other words, create like a huge PR, create a lot of like changes, create a lot of like breaking changes, and move a lot of files between like models. And the result of this, we have some kind of working prototype, but this prototype it's not fully integrated. And developer who made this just tell, okay, I migrate, but I'm not sure it's worked properly. We need to retest, and we need to spend a lot of like to rebuild application from start. And after, because it was even before Compose was like to in production, it was just our try out how it will be look like Compose Multiplatform for iOS side. We just keep in mind of this like to branch, but we decided goes to more organically step-by-step approach. What does mean? And the main idea, not try to migrate fully at once. We try to take some simple screen, what I showed before with notification. It's like a simplest screen on the application, and just try to move this screen in shared model, and try to display on both on Android and iOS. If you work okay, QA just test this, and we can pass for the next screen. Next, and screen by screen, we can move and like to fully migrate application. It was our target. And this is just example. We have 3 branches. One top of another would show how we migrate one screen, another screen, and like a third screen. I think it's very organically and very like efficient way to migrate. And if you want to think about do the same migration, I recommend it to this approach. Just select one screen, migrate, and check result. In here, we need to tell some words about like to basic architecture. And I see here it's not so very different. If you work with Compose Kotlin multi-platform, it's some very simple idea. We have like to, at the start, we have like a 3 base model. We have the shared model, what contains the all business logic. It's not related to UI, just like to network connection, storage, some kind of use cases, how we manipulate with data. And we have 2 models, what related for Android, and for iOS, they can handle SwiftUI in Compose and like to native navigation. After migration, our structure is slightly bit more complicated, but almost we try to keep more simple. We introduced just like 2 models, more simplify app model for keep use this model as like to glue to the whole like to all another models what we introduce, and here we initialize all dependency and like provide this dependency for platform, and it's our coin home like to shared application in some another installation happen here. And also we shared like to shared UI model where we keep all like to UI screens what will be displayed for iOS and Android. In our migration, the basic idea it was just take some Android screens and move here, because in most of the cases when you migrate from regular Compose, Android Compose to Compose Multiplatform, it's just like to drag and drop from one model to another, and some very less adjustment with import, but almost the same API stay present for both. It's one of the benefits if you have now native UI with Compose, you very simply migrate to Compose Multiplatform. Okay, and what is some more biggest and complicated topic is like to navigation. And navigation here, it was, I think, the main tricky part, because before migration, all screens we almost have because we have Android part. But when we start move from one side to another, we need to properly adjust navigation. And in this, because we migrate screen by screen, we have situation when we have some kind of shared screens, we have native screens, and we need to properly navigate between these screens. And to solve this like problem, we do the same, almost the same stuff what David described in the solution. We introduce like to App Navigator Kotlin interface, what live in like shared models, and we just implement this on in our like platform models to handle this like calls. And in result of this, we have situation when in the same time we have like 2 navigation work together, and even in one flow we have some native navigation, shared navigation, native navigation, and it's work properly. Not work from the start, from scratch, but after some like investigation and adoption, it's work like properly too. Here is in this video we have just example how we navigate between screens, and you can see some screens is the same. It's mean like this. It's like two shared screens, and they have their own navigation. And after they back to native screens, in other words, we have like some two navigation combined together. And we solve these problems, and yeah, it's one like two problems what you should be like to solve during the migration. And also when you use like to approach what I described before step by step, first you just migrate one screen without navigation, the next you should be think about migration, and just you solve just problem by problem from screen to screen. In end of the migration, we have we should be like to fully remove native navigation for platform and just use the shared navigation. It's our like goal. Okay, and because we have several screens, and we do step by step, we have some kind of routines. The first screen was some, I think, was some complicated, and because we just need to set up the models, set up the dependency, but with the first screen was like solved. We just like to go screen by screen, even possible like to spread this task between developers, but we not spread because I was only single developers in this project, and we just like to I just like to walk screen by screen. And this example how work like to migration, for example, one of the main screen, it's like to train information screen. You see there's a very different between Android and iOS. After migration, these two screens look almost the same. Again, just different size. And also you can see in iOS side, we don't have the button what present here because it was like a bug what developers introduced. They forgot to make this button. But after when they migrate, this button appears like to normally we not even adjust and add some new logic. In other words, we solve the problem, additional problem what exists before. Size slightly different. And also you can see we have the blue background here and white background on the iOS migrated screen. It's some kind of issue what we recognized before. It's because we not so properly handle theme initialization for iOS and for Android. And result of this, like to default background slightly different, but we fix it later. And this example just shows the same screen and show how it's look navigation before. It's different dialogues, different buttons, different light reflections, but after migration, all these differences unify, and you have like to almost identical behavior for both platform, and all buttons work and same identical. I think it was our goals, and we were like to reach these goals on the screen. And also we do the same for all another screens: migrate, test, and just delivery. It looks like very smooth on the words, but also, as you know, as any developers, we like the problems, and we like the problems what appeared during the migration. And one of the problems what we faced, it was like missing resource exceptions. I don't know, maybe someone hit with these problems too. Okay, it's not so very obvious. And I think this exception just show like one of the tricky moments of use cross-platform solutions. And this case, this problem show when something works properly on Android, but when you start and run simulator, you see the application crash immediately. You just, okay, what is happening? And you try to investigate. And before AI era, it was more complicated because you spent more time just like to search, find the problems. But and these problems, it's like to existing problem in Kotlin, and this is like to open issue on JetBrains about these like to missing resource exceptions. What is like the main problems when you try, for example, some samples from JetBrains website, even build Compose Multiplatform, work all like super, and all icons, all like to images, what you ask like to display correctly. But when you start modularize your application, when you create some shared UI model, it's like to separate from app model. They like to build process happens slightly different. And this problem happen especially for when you build X code framework. They just pack all like resources what should be present in application, like to icons, images, in some specific folder. What iOS application like to use these resources during them like to display. But the main problem was the folder is created, but they created with wrong name. And our simple solution, we just like to copy like to resource folder with like to proper name with dash. In result of this, its problem is solved. And I did now, this is like to now an issue with Kotlin multi-platform, but it's still like to solve. And when you use like to modularization, especially for UI, I think you should be like to face with this problem too. But okay, we solve this problem, but this is just highlight one of the main, I think, main like problem for Kotlin multi-platform. You should be very like to adjust like to building process and make some kind of a lot of like to some handmade scripts to properly build iOS libraries and for Android libraries. And very often you possible have situation when something works, something not work on one platform, not work on another platform. And I think it's like one of the tricky moments for Kotlin multi-platform. Okay, it's time for conclusion. What we found during this like journey, I think we in the process of like to fully migration now, and the main like to points I want to just highlight for you and why it's like to matter, especially for now. First, you write once and run in both platform. As before, I show we possibly like to write one components and just like to show and display this component on both platform. Because we migrate, we have situation when we create one component maybe 3 times. But if you just like to start migrate, you possibly fully reuse like to Android components. Or if you start from scratch, just like to write once and they will play well on both platform. The second, it's like to unified UI, and you just like to build one UI, and if you try to build like to pixel perfect, it will be pixel perfect for another like platform too. In other words, you not see a lot of like difference between platforms. Someone can like to discuss and argue about this, and they want to have some kind of like maybe native experience for both platform to make user more happy. But in this case, you possibly add some kind of tricks for some components, just create some slightly difference for some buttons or some elements. But it's just question about resources. If you're a small company, if you have small product, if you want to build like a faster, unified UI is the best solution. If you mature, you possibly have a lot of resources, you possibly like to spend more money and keep like a both platform, both UI native. And the last moment is like to trick integration. And I think it's like to, I mean, trick integration is not just integrate shared Compose multi-platform. It's mean how we like to build Compose Kotlin multi-platform application. But for current moment, I think it's we have very good like to tendency from JetBrains, from Google to simplify this process to make like to developer experience more like to make like to developer experience more enjoyable and create some additional like to plugins, like to additional tools to develop Kotlin multi-platform more easy. And I think it's because we have the tendency, we not solve all the problems. I think it's, this is we can just change from like to disadvantage to advantage now, because I remember when I tried to Kotlin multi-platform the first time around like 5 years ago, it was very tricky. You have just like to spend, I don't know, several hours just like to run some simple application. But now it's more easy. You can use some samples, use Android Studio and run and start build almost immediately, and use a lot of libraries with support for BOS platform. Yep, I think it's main takeaway from our journey. It was too nice, and this step-by-step approach take, especially for me, a lot of new knowledge how properly craft Compose Multiplatform for BOS platform. Yeah, it's all. Thank you for your attention.